One. Good evening. My name is Monty Martin.
And I'm Kelly McLaughlin.
And we are
the Dungeon Dudes.
Welcome to our Dungeons of Drakkenheim Kickstarter Launch live stream. Wow, we are so excited to talk about this tonight.
Yeah, it's been absolutely wild just watching this happen today. We've surpassed everything that Monty and I had imagined we would do, not only in the first day, but I don't even think we were planning this much for like the first week. I don't know. It's
super amazing. So for those of you that don't know, we have just launched Dungeons of Drakkenheim this morning on Kickstarter. This is a complete campaign for 5th edition for characters level 1 to 13, written by Kelly and I, and based on the live stream campaign that we ran on YouTube and Twitch through 2018 and 2019. We are so excited to share this world with you.
Yeah, it's been a long work in progress, but we're so excited about where it's ended up. When we started the live stream, I don't think we had any anticipation that we would even be making a book. The live stream going past like 6 or 7 episodes was more than we had originally anticipated. And to just have so many people who have fallen in love with the world that we created, the characters that we created, and to see the support today, wow.
It's super overwhelming. So we just launched this morning, and we have already surpassed 2,600 backers, pledging just shy of $300,000 US. We might be hitting that target in any minute now, which is just so overwhelming. When we launched, we had stretch goals at the 50,000 and 100,000 mark, and thought, okay, we'll be fine for that. That'll be good to start. And we were very wrong about that. So for those of you wondering where the next set of stretch goals are, we're working on it. They'll be up soon. We kind of just have to get some graphics adjusted because we didn't think we were going to be this far this fast.
Yeah, for those of you who are wondering, we do have a lot of stretch goals planned. We haven't blown past all of them. We just weren't prepared to have graphics ready for what has happened today. So Ghostfire Games is hard at work getting those graphics ready, and you will see more stretch goals appearing soon. We may have already hit another one. I'm not even sure. I think we may have, but we're guessing that we might actually hit 300,000 while we're on the stream tonight, which is going to be crazy. So get ready for more stretch goals. We don't want to spoil anything, but we'll keep you posted as we know more.
Yeah, just we're so excited, but we do want to tonight. The goal for tonight is to introduce you to a little bit more that's going to be coming in the book, talk about some of the extra add-ons and accessories that we're going to have, and take some questions from chat about what's coming, what's next, and what is going to be in the book itself, and any questions that you might have about any of the cool accessories and add-ons that we've planned with this. We feel so fortunate to be able to even do this much. The Ghostfire team has been super amazing, and when we came into this process, we were like, okay, so we're gonna make a book, and maybe we'll do a map, and maybe if we're lucky we can do a GM screen. But the fact that we can do all these cool add-ons like miniatures and dice, and all this extra cool stuff on top of that is a real treat on top of it.
I was so happy in our meetings with Ghostfire Games a little early on, where they just started bringing things up, and they were like, I don't know, do you guys want to do like a map pack? And it's like, yes. And they're like, well, what do you want any extra things? I remember this conversation where I was like, I'm the kind of person who, when I go into a Kickstarter and I see like you can get the normal copy or you can get the copy that has the statue or the plushie, I'm always like, I'm going to get that one. So I was like, can we do something like that? And they were like, yeah, we could do a Rat Prince plushie. And it's just like, all right, I don't know if anybody will care about that other than me, but sure, let's do it. And it sounds like a lot of people cared about it, and I'm excited.
Yeah. And so because of that, I want to give a big shout out right away before tonight to all the amazing people involved in this project, because there's a lot more people than just Kelly and I that have put so much work into this. I want to start off by thinking our amazing art director, Marius, has put in some incredible work. Hannah has been a superhero at organizing almost everything that you see on the Kickstarter page and marketing, just an absolute superhuman. Jordan, Tyler, and Matt and Josh, who are the top end folks at Ghostfire Games, as well as Simon, Rex, Kat, Martin, and Suzanne, as well as Sean. You have all put in so much. We'll be hearing more about these folks and all their roles in this, but everything from layout, graphic design, art direction, development, all the logistics and the products of finding all these things and bringing these things together. The Ghostfire team has been super amazing. I also want to give a huge thank you to Kyle, who is with us right now in chat, keeping things moderated. I want to give, I think Kelly and I both want to give a huge thank you to our partners, Kirsten and Kelly.
Shay.
You want to get to Kirsten and Shay, our respective partners who've been so patient with us. But also, we have two people that deserve a very special thank you for joining us along this ride from the very beginning, and they're with us here this evening. Joe and Jill, thank you so much as well for being part of this world. So say hello.
Hey. So happy for you guys. This is incredible. What a great community. And it's a testament to the hard work that you've put in behind the scenes. You know, week to week, people show up on Tuesday, but they don't get to see everything that you do behind the scenes. So congratulations to you both. So excited. So excited.
Congrats. So happy for you guys. Oh my gosh. Like, I've just been watching it all day, just being like, guys.
And
refresh.
We just hit 300,000.
Yeah. Well, thanks. 300,000. But honestly, like, I know that you guys are congratulating us, but like Drakenheim wouldn't exist without Jill and Joe and their contributions to the world. We wouldn't have nearly as many amazing food puns. We wouldn't be able to tell people that Rangers are amazing if it wasn't for Jill.
Yeah. We wrote the book.
Also, Joe definitely proved that fighters are not boring. And also, I don't think Caspia would exist if it wasn't for Joe. So thank you both for all of your contributions, your continued hard work, and all the energy that you bring to the show. Playing with you two has been one of the greatest joys of my life, and I'm just so happy that we get to have those moments on Tuesday nights. So thank you.
And there's a few other people that we really have to extend a massive thank you to as well. And that's all of you on the other side of this screen. The folks that have been watching us on YouTube from the very beginning, there were folks that were watching us way back in 2018 before we started streaming that were asking, are you guys going to start streaming your D&D game? And that encouragement that came at the very beginning, and then the encouragement that once we started streaming, the crowd, so many comments. There's one comment that we got more than anything else on all of our Drakenheim streams. It is, when is a book coming? And it is so amazing to be able to say, well, here it comes. So were it not for you all, our amazing viewers and audience, and especially the folks in our Patreon community as well, your your viewership, your belief in us, your comments, your incredible support in so many ways. And whether that has come in the form of just liking or commenting on one of our videos, being part of our Patreon, or going in and claiming the executioner's treasure, know that any amount of support that you've offered is I'm so humbled and so gracious at that level of support. It feels like an absolute treat for me as someone that, grew up playing games, and, being that nerd that, sometimes, parents and siblings would be like, why are you wasting your time playing games?
No, I actually remember telling my mom and dad that I was getting into Dungeons and Dragons, and my mom was like, "Oh, I've heard about that game. Are you sure? Are you sure? Don't waste all your time." Little did she know I would definitely waste all my time playing Dungeons and Dragons. But look,
is it a waste? Was it a waste? No, that's the point.
Yeah.
Oh man, but it's really been a ride to get here, and none of us could have ever imagined this level of support from the community, and we're just so thankful. Tonight we're just going to be hanging out for a couple hours. We have Joe, we have Jill, we have the Dungeon Dudes, and we have all of you. And we're just going to chill. We're going to answer some questions. We're going to talk about Drakenheim. We're going to talk about the Kickstarter, but also just favorite moments, favorite memories, what we're excited about in the future. Just kind of chill.
I think to really get ourselves hyped out, why don't we watch that cinematic one more time? Yeah. Ready for that?
Yes.
All right. We're going to it now. Let us delve back into the ruins.
Drakenheim is no more. Struck by falling stars upon that woeful eve, the death and destruction were nothing to the madness and terror left behind. Strange crystals lie amidst the forsaken ruins, fiercely sought by sorcerers and scoundrels. For the shards command a high price indeed. Their magic can forge powerful weapons, but their whispers inspire occult worship. While rival factions struggle to rule the rubble, horrific monsters stalk the haunted streets. What do you seek in that accursed place? Riches, renown, revenge? The destiny of the Dark City is yours to decide. If you survive, the Dungeons of Drakenheim.
Well, what do you think of that?
So good.
Come quite a long way from when Kelly and Jill put together our first trailer for Drakenheim.
Yeah. Looking back at Jill for the original Dungeons of Drakenheim, Jill and I whipped up that trailer. I did some outlines. Jill did some outlines. Jill did a lot of the finishing touches, and then I piece it together in an editing program as best I could, and we got one of our earliest fans, 100 Years Bored, to do the voice. But that was like pulling all the strings that we had available to us in the beginning of our show. And now to see this one, we had a team of animators and artists. We had they hired a professional voiceover artist. Do we have the
composers? We'll get the full list up for everybody, for all the folks that were in on this, because it was a huge effort of people to bring this whole thing together. Just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's so fun to see how far it's all come.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I really want to show off here, and I'm just going to pull this up on screen, is So the cinematic is awesome. I love it. I love that Sebastian Veo and Pluto are in there. But I also just want to talk about for a second this new map of Drakenheim.
The map of Drakenheim, what I love about it is they just, like, Monty, what did you use to whip up the original map? It was Photoshop
and a random generator.
Yeah.
So extending it into this amazing map really has been a treat.
Yeah, the new map is basically like it's based off of Monty's original map, just with professional artists making it look way better. And yes, tabaxis have hair. That was Jill. Jill designed her tabaxi. We don't care about any lore. It is what it is. It's Jill, but if she was a cat, and yes, that's a thing.
And it
Essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, just so pleased with the amazing cartography that we're seeing so far for this, but the re-envisioned map of Drakkenheim with only a few things shifted around.
Yeah, like we moved the meteor a little bit, and we made Queen's Park Garden a little bit bigger, and yeah.
Yeah, and of course, Castle Draken now has a nice set of cliffs fully surrounding it, and we've made it a little bit more wooded along the north end of it. But otherwise, everything's there. And hopefully, if we hit some more stretch goals, we can fit much more into the city. There's so much more to do. So one of the stretch goals that we actually have hit, I think, is the road to Drakenheim.
Yes,
as well, which is super exciting. So one of the things that we get a lot of questions about is Drakenheim's really dangerous. So how do you handle level 1 and 2 characters? And our original sort of, we had like a kind of hand wavy answer to that, and being able to fit in where essentially if we didn't hit that stretch goal, we were kind of going to defang a couple locations, like make the Rat's Nest more appropriate for level 1 characters. But now we don't have to make some safer places in the city. We can actually have this proper introductory adventure that begins with your characters on the road to the city and exploring a few things.
Yeah, they run into a few issues on the road to Drakenheim, and the issues, I'm really happy with what we wrote for the mini adventure, because there's like role play, combat, exploration on your way to Drakenheim that all kind of allude to how terrible Drakenheim is going to be for you. So yeah, we've hit that stretch goal, which is awesome.
Yeah. It really pleased to see that get hit. And of course, a big one as well is the fact that we also get we hit the world of Drakenheim as well.
Right, the lore dump.
The big lore dump at the beginning. So for those of you wondering about, all the other good stuff, all the wider world, now we're going to have an appendix section now added to the book. I think the Google Doc was like 20 or 30 pages. Yeah, Kelly? I
think so. That'll probably get cut down for the book, but because formatting and all that.
Now, when it gets into the actual page format, because this is the interesting thing, is that a Google Doc does not correspond at all to the way it gets laid out. So when Kelly says it'll get cut down for the book, we don't mean that any of the content from what we wrote will not make it. We mean that it will probably fit into fewer pages from what it is as a Google Doc.
The formatting.
Yeah. Which is just exciting, because that's going to be really helpful for everybody making characters in Drakenheim, and I guess, really everybody, because the lore is just going to be kind of filling out the world, has sort of our insight into how we created the religions in the world of Drakenheim, the cosmology. If you don't want to be part of the Falling Fire or the Sacred Flame, then what are you? And we have kind of tidbits of information about that. I want to hear just from Joe and Jill. What are you guys most excited about with this Kickstarter?
Joe, you go first.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm excited to see what else you guys get to do. Because I know that you've been working on this book for so long, and You've always teased me with updates and info, and you like to ask questions. But even for the campaign, I know Monty, and to an extension, you, Kelly, you had so much that was like, it's that classic, like, hey, there's this red door, and we're like, we're gonna go to the blue one, and you have all this stuff planned behind the red door. So I can't wait to see that stuff, the stuff that I missed, and sort of relive those amazing moments. Because I know, Monty, you're such a depth of that content, and there was so many things. I remember so many times going to the basement, and you're like, Monty did this thing where he would put out a bigger monster beside him as like a throw us off monster, so we would never know what we were fighting. And I'm sure some of them we never got to.
Yeah.
To go along with that, Joe, one of my favorite parts about writing this book was in our original campaign, we explored what it was like to team up with the Amethyst Academy and the Hooded Lanterns. Those were the two that we sided with. But being able to write and flesh out what happens if you go a completely different way, like what does a Queen of Thieves campaign look like? What does a Falling Fire campaign look like? And those are very exciting concepts to me. And being able to work on those with Monty, it was like, what would the Queen of Thieves ask you to do towards the end of the campaign? And coming up with some of the ideas. I'm keep saying Queen of Thieves because I won't lie, writing the Queen of Thieves arc and like what she would get you to do if you're working with her was just so ridiculously fun. It was like, all right, a maniacal lady who like runs all of the bandits in Drakenheim. What does she want out of this? And it was so fun. So I'm really excited for you guys to get to see those other paths that we didn't take. Jill, what about you?
You know what? Reading through like and seeing a lot of the comments from people so far, I'm so excited for people to be kind of open up that bubble of Drakenheim. Like Drakenheim has really been, we've been playing it, we've kind of done this stream, we've been in this world, but I'm so excited to see what other people do with this world, you know, to hear kind of the feedback and hear the ideas. What parties are people going to create to go in this world that we've gotten to play in? Now it's so open to other people. So it's going to be great. Yeah.
And I think I actually want to show this because this is a bit that I'm really proud of that is in the book, and it helps us preview a little bit here. This is the page spread from the introduction to the Running the Campaign chapter, which is chapter 2. And we actually open by actually saying that, you know, we've written a lot for this book, but a lot of it is inspiration, guidelines, and tools to help you respond to your players as they explore Drakkenheim. This is a non-linear adventure, and running an exciting and dynamic non-linear adventure requires really good judgment on your part. And so we're here to help you through that process. But you should also feel empowered to make Drakkenheim your own and make changes so that your players have a rewarding and challenging experience. You might even need to devise your own material to put into this campaign. It is, and I think for even if you're a new dungeon master, I think that you'll find the framework that we give you in Drakenheim makes it really easy for you to, like, you know, if you're reading another adventure or another module, or you just are like, oh, I downloaded this map and I drew this map out and I made this 5-room dungeon, and you just want to drop that into Drakenheim, it's really easy to do that because the adventure is so open-ended in the way that it goes. But we do have a disclaimer right off the beginning, is like, we've got this fun story overview here, which kind of recaps the original campaign, but acknowledges that your players could totally take this thing in a direction that even we don't expect.
Yeah. And what's interesting is when you watch us play the first season, we took the campaign in a direction that Monty didn't expect. And the book doesn't necessarily account for those wild directions we chose. The biggest example being, your characters are probably going to murder the Rat Prince.
I was going to say, they probably won't befriend a rat.
But then what ends up happening is if they murder the Rat Prince and ignore the Lord of the Feast, then you can have the Lord of the Feast become a major problem for them. If they kill Oscar Yorn, but they leave some other NPCs alive that could be problems, then have those NPCs become a bigger part of Drakenheim. And we encourage you in the book. There's not really, we couldn't do guidelines for every possible NPC that might become important in your campaign. Because there's always that one NPC that you never planned on that your characters are going to latch onto. And you have the open option of just being like, well, they murdered these people, but they didn't even look at these people. So now those people are a problem. So that's going to be really fun to see the direction that people take and how it differs.
Yeah, one of the things that we did is in every adventure site that you explore, so whether that's the cathedral or the rat's nest, we kind of started out by saying, okay, here's why your characters might come here, but these are just a few possible reasons why they might, and they're designed to be really easy adventure hooks. So if you've been thrown for a loop, one of the cool things about Drakenheim is that you can always have Petra or River or Nathaniel Flint show up and say, hey guys, you need to go explore this area for us, because so many locations have a tie-in to a faction, so you can basically always start off by saying, hey players, this faction is hiring you to go explore this location, and you're already there. And then we describe kind of all the dynamic interactions that can occur here so that you're prepared for that. Then we do the room by room description that you'd expect from any other adventure. But at the end of each section for every location, we have the section called developments, where we lay out all the possible outcomes and some of the possibilities and again, we're not saying this has to happen, but we're saying that this is a possibility and this is how you might respond to it based on some key things in there. So you can, and we do have a flow chart for the whole adventure that gives you like a suggested order to navigate through that is based on the original show. But if you're doing things out of order, if your players are doing things in a non-linear way, we focus in on each location in the city as a way of stringing everything together so that it all kind of makes comprehensive sense. And then we kind of layer the factions and the personal quests on top of that. So you can actually decide how complex you want your Drakenheim campaign to be. If you actually want to turn it into a very linear campaign, you can just have the whole party as agents of a single faction and run them through the quests of that faction only, and not worry about all the different ways that it can go off. But if you want to do something totally wild where your players are driving the car, you can hand it over to them.
Just to answer a few questions in chat. Yes, Sten is in the book. He's a guard for the Hooded Lanterns. I feel like there were some other ones here. Jupiter Jones. Yep. So actually, we do have a piece in the book about rival adventurers, because that's what Jupiter Jones was. He was our rival adventuring party. So you can either have Jupiter Jones and his gang, or you can have Sebastian Veo and Pluto as the rival adventurers. So those are your two options.
Good luck.
But all of the loved characters from Untold Tales, at least most of them, I think we got all of them in there. Was there anybody that we missed?
I think we did, because one of the things that we do, and I'll actually show this page spread. It doesn't show this part of it, but this is what we do for each faction. So this is the intro to the faction for the Queen's Men, and what's not in this spread, but you'll see this is eventually when the book comes. We actually have a table of quick NPCs for each faction, and we took many of the characters from Untold Tales and put them in these areas. So if you want to have Nimble Quill, or if you want to have Rufus Stonewall, or if you want to have of course if you want to have Jerry Riggs, the Boogeyman, and Dell. Jerry Riggs, the Boogeyman, and Dell are actually the Queen of Thieves' elite assassins. So if you really get on the Queen of Thieves' bad side, she sends all three of them after you.
Yeah.
And don't forget, Dell can fly.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, but then to navigate that with every faction, you'll actually see here on this page spread, every faction has personality traits, ideals, bonds, flaws that help you just role play any of the faction members, and you can actually use these for a player character as well if you wanted to, and then that layers on top of their goals and all the other details about all the factions as well. So we kind of give you a framework with the factions to play with that you can use in a very open-ended way. I like to think of the factions as a toolbox rather than like this is not meant to be a like video game style dialogue tree, because not only is that super complicated, it doesn't work for the fluid format that is a tabletop role-playing game. You have to be able to be dynamic.
People are still asking. The answer to all of it is yes. Like all of the loved characters are in there. People are now asking about Chud and Blackjack Mel. Blackjack Mel is definitely in there. So each faction has not only their leader, but their lieutenant. Now, there is one character who got a major upgrade.
There's a few that got some major upgrades, actually.
Fair. I just mean like from Untold Tales NPC, because a lot of the Untold Tales characters are just NPCs, except Nathaniel Flint. Because the Falling Fire needed a lieutenant. Every other faction had their lieutenant. So the Queen of Thieves has Blackjack Mel. The Hooded Lanterns have Ansem and Petra. And now Lucretia Mathias and the Falling Fire have Nathaniel Flint as the lieutenant. Chud works in the kitchen, as is what he always wanted to do.
His dream.
It's his dream. His dream was to work in the kitchen, so we put him in the kitchen. His days of adventuring are maybe over, but that might be up to you. You might bring Chud out. I don't know. Who knows? I'm sure Chud will have many more adventures in your games. Yeah,
and so every faction has a faction leader and a faction lieutenant. So the Queen of Thieves, Elias Drexel, Theodore Marshall, Lucretia Mathias, and formally in the book, Eldrick Runeweaver serves as the de facto faction leader of the Amethyst Academy, as he is their chief representative in the city. All 5 faction leaders are challenge rating 15 legendary NPCs. So several of them got a power level upgrade from the original campaign as well, because we want all of the faction leaders to be able to be a climactic boss battle, or serve as a key ally as needed. And then Blackjack Mel, River, Nathaniel Flint, Petra and Ansem, and Ophelia Reed are the lieutenants for each of the factions.
Just saw another question. Are there any new faction-specific classes or subclasses? Not in this book. This book is more about the campaign and running it. It is less about the players, although there are sections for building players in Drakenheim, building characters. We have additional backgrounds and we have personal quests. If you haven't heard about our personal quest system, personal quests are every player character chooses one of our 12 personal quests or works with their DM to design their own. But the personal quest basically makes sure that your character has a reason for going to Drakenheim and a reason to stay there. Their personal quest could be to find a missing loved one, or finding a cure to contamination, or dethroning one of the leaders of a faction, or joining a faction. So there's a lot of different personal quests to choose from, and that will help make your player characters more entrenched into the world of Drakenheim. But I also saw the question for races and whether we have specific races and classes. We leave it open. We want you to be encouraged to make any type of character that you want to make. So, for example, when we created Drakenheim, we had no idea that there was going to be tabaxis in Drakenheim until Jill said, I want to play a tabaxi. And then we were like...
Catfolk.
Right, catfolk. We don't have any tabaxi in Drakenheim. We have catfolk. And yeah, so Jill wanted to play one, and so we put it in. And so we kind of leave that open. The world is vast and full of different type of people. We do have a human-centric theme in Drakenheim, but there's nothing unusual. You could be any race walking through Drakenheim, and nobody's going to be like, "What's that type of person do?" No, it's just going to be like, "Cool, you're a, I don't know, Triton wizard. Sure, why not?" There's no difference in the way in what you decide to bring to Drakenheim.
And with the personal quests, a awesome element of them is that all of them, the personal quests are not created equally. So it is possible to choose a harder personal quest than the other ones, and that is intentional. Some personal quests characters might be able to complete pretty early. Some personal quests are pretty hard. If your personal quest is to slay the Queen of Thieves, you got your work cut out for you.
What to tell you.
But good luck with that.
Good luck with it. But it'll be awesome when you do achieve it, regardless of how ambitious your personal quest is. When you finish your character's own personal quest, you get to either choose a bonus feat or an ability score increase, and that ability score increase can go above 20 as well if you want to. So we make that as an extra special reward for seeking out your personal objective that motivates you to adventure in the city. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of cool stuff for players, because obviously the players get to experience the factions and the locations, but the players also get to play with Delirium. And so this is the intro to our Delirium, Magic Items, and Spells section, where we kind of lay out some of the rules for how Delirium works and what you can do with it. And we're going to include some magic items forged with Delirium, and we got some upcoming stretch goals that will add more as well to the book. So we're really hoping that we can get some stretch goals and make sure that we can get all of the cool contaminated spells and the magic items that we want to create in here, because that was kind of the thing where we were like, we have the plot-centric magic items that are here, but we really want to have fun and be able to do things like make our bottled comet or aka the mini version of the Delirium bomb.
Yeah. A lot of people, I just saw a question here that I want to address. A lot of people have been asking, like, why weren't the ratlings made into their own faction? And we've been very specific about this in the past, but one thing that is actually hard for Monty and I is with monstrous races. So a lot of people wanted playable ratlings and ratling factions, but we want there to be a clear separation between monsters and I guess non-monsters.
Let me just put it this way. It's a bit of a spoiler, but there is a reason why the monsters are not playable. And it is a story-based reason why it's not appropriate for them as player characters. If you do want to do that with your Drakkenheim campaign, by all means do it. Like, you definitely have the framework there, but the factions operate at a level that the monsters don't, and they are meant to be adversaries and obstacles, and there are some narrative reasons why we decided as the creators of this world not to have the monsters be a faction, because as Kelly said, we wanted to let monsters be monsters. Well, there's lots of worlds where we get to play with that. There's so much moral ambiguity in the world of Drakenheim that we felt it was really necessary for the monsters to be monsters.
Somebody in chat said, so goblins make the cut, but rat folk didn't. Goblins aren't up to us. We don't get to make that choice. Yeah. That's a choice that's already been made by Wizards of the Coast to make goblins a playable race, which made it hard to kill goblins in D&D games all of a sudden. So yeah, in our campaign, our monsters remain monsters, and we're not going to tell you not to play a goblin in Drakenheim if that's what you want to do at your table. You won't see a goblin in Drakenheim at our table.
Yeah, well, no, you have, because we had Jerry Riggs.
Right, but he was okay, there we go.
Yeah, so no, we do, and I think that's the distinction. And so, ratlings, their creature type is monstrosity. In Drakenheim, right? So there are, again, it's not impossible if you want to use the custom lineage rules from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. That's a perfect starting point for a playable ratling. You could even reflavor the kobold. And maybe if there's always possibilities, but we didn't want to frame that from the beginning, from the outset, that was the thing, because it tends to reframe the conversation. If we put a ratling as a playable character right at the beginning of the book, it sends a signal that these guys aren't monsters. But in Drakenheim, they are monsters, and we want to let them be monsters, because that's part of the fun of the Ratlings and of playing the Rat Prince, was playing an adorable psychopath that is mad and is completely is a creation of insane cosmic forces that are beyond comprehension. And so there's a bit of a joy in that, at least as a dungeon master. So, and of course, we'll see. We will see if there's more possibilities. There's always things that we can think about as we embark further on this project.
I want to include Joe and Jill some more here. Looking back at Drakenheim, what were some of your favorite adventure sites? What are you really excited? Like, what adventure location are you most excited to see expanded upon in the Drakenheim book?
Well, one that you did mention is Castle Draken itself. I know that we always sort of stood in its shadow and we always sort of played around the city, but that is such like a standing place, and I know that you've really, at least from what you've told me, started to kind of flesh that out and figure out what that castle looks like. And I'm excited for myself and for everybody watching to have a chance to kind of go in. Like, you definitely saw what we did on the show, but I think there's so much more to it.
There is. The castle is one of the most expanded upon areas.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's super exciting.
Also Jill,
yeah,
what do you think?
So I think the Academy Tower, only because we've been in there twice, and I feel like there's still more that we could have gotten into in there.
Yep.
And with it being such a magical place, I feel like there's real shenanigans that players can get into. So.
Yeah.
For scale, the Academy Tower is roughly the size of the Empire State Building. And so it's so large that when we were writing it, we actually wrote it in such a way that we give you the framework for designing your own floor of the Academy Tower, because it's so big, right? And so unfathomably vast, and not really subject to the rules of logic either. So you can decide what is on each floor, and the library is totally bonkers. We've really revisited that, and it's a lot cooler.
Yeah, I think that was originally we were like, how are we going to map the entire Academy Tower? And it didn't even occur to me when we were talking to Ghostfire that it was like, oh, we definitely don't have the page count. I mean, that would be a whole book on its own, would be the Academy Tower. Could be a mega dungeon if we mapped out every floor. But also, your players don't need to go to every floor, because a lot of them are apartments, and you're just going to be rifling through dead wizards' personal belongings, which maybe you'll find a potion, but
or a wand or a good spellbook.
But like, I don't know, if your players want to spend 2 days going through each apartment, you can probably have them find a couple cool things, but there was no need for us to map all that out.
I guess the other piece to this is the place we didn't go, which is the crater.
Yes, the crater. The crater has all the answers that you are looking for.
Yep.
And none of them at the same time.
Indeed. I'm really excited for that one. I think, yes, the book does tell you the origins of the meteor. And yes, you can go into the crater and see what's there. And my simple hope is that it fills your players with despair.
Speaking of, when are we going to the crater, guys?
Yeah.
and you have to say it like that every time you introduce the crater. You may go to the crater, but it will fill you with despair.
Yeah.
Oh man. People are asking about going beyond level 13. I mean, some of the challenges could push you past level 13, and there is a kind of an open-endedness to the ending that we don't necessarily give you as much framework, but we say here's where it could go next if you want to continue homebrewing the escalation of events.
So I'm just going to express a personal opinion of mine in that in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, in 5th edition in particular, once you hit level 13, there's no such thing as game balance anymore. And characters that are level 13 are capable of doing things that are capable of facing challenges well over challenge rating 20. And especially when they have help. So so there are challenges in Drakenheim that would be deadly challenges for level 20 characters. But in a Drakenheim campaign, your player characters are going to be able to get help from the factions. They're going to be able to get help from rival adventurers. They're going to be able to seek out resources and things to overcome them. So one of the things that I like to say is that Drakenheim is technically a tier shifted adventure. We kind of ask the player characters to do things that characters a tier above them would be expected to do, with the understanding that this is a difficult and challenging campaign, but one where if you're smart, if you make good allies, if you find good magic items, if you learn the new spells, if you learn the new strategies, you can overcome those. And of course, as a dungeon master, we do give you the levers to adjust the encounter balance. But one of the things that we came out and said, and I actually think it's in the section that we previewed from the Dungeon Master's Guide, is that we have not tightly balanced the combat encounters, and that is completely intentional. So there are the ones that are in the earlier part of the campaign are very balanced. As soon as the Drakenheim gets above level 7-ish, we kind of just take unchain the whole thing. So I personally think that level 20 characters would find Castle Draken challenging and rewarding, but part of it also comes into play is that Drakenheim is a world where spells like Wish and Meteor Swarm tend to distort the world building expectations as well. So we wanted to kind of keep them off the table. Yes, you could extend it that far. And I think that if you want to create some material of your own and beef things up and adjust the later things like the Academy Tower and Castle Draken and the Crater, you could find those areas quite challenging for 16th, 17th, 18th level characters.
We're also getting a lot of questions about signed copies of the book. I did see somebody already answered this. Unfortunately, the book is being manufactured and printed nowhere near us. So it makes no logistical sense. We would have to up the price probably a lot, and it still probably wouldn't make any sense because they would have to print the book, send it to us, get signed. We would send it then. Either we would have to mail it personally. It would just be. It's a lot of confusing stuff that just.
Yeah, the biggest obstacle there is that it has to come into Canada and go out of Canada and then to wherever you are. So what our hope is that conventions will be back soon, and we can absolutely sign your copy there. But during the Kickstarter, we found unfortunately it turned out that it's just a bit of a tough logistics solve because Kelly and I are working with Ghostfire Games on this to do all this, and we have Kelly and I have no infrastructure. So if a shipping pallet of books showed up at the door of my house, I don't know where I would put them, and I don't have the I have no
we are literally two people in a basement. We don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But yes, Monty and I actually, well, all of us hope to make some rounds at conventions over the next few years, and because we have the book coming out, we plan to have a spot where you can buy the book, where we will sign copies of the book. We'll see what else happens, but we definitely will be around to sign copies of the book at conventions, and that's going to be something that we want to do.
I have a question for Jill and Joe. What would be your top survival tips for players exploring Drakenheim?
Ooh, good question. I guess, I mean, it kind of ties all my pieces that I'm doing, because I was going to be like, okay, don't go over the walls right away. And make sure you have stuff to go into haze. I would just say, think about if you think you're going to do something and the book tells you not to, or something along those lines, or you think, oh, we can do it, just think about it. So, Veo's best advice is just follow a guide and think smart. That's all I could say, I guess. I don't know where that leads to, but it might lead to really interesting things. Or
no, it is important. A lot of players are foolhardy, and this is not a good campaign for foolhardy players. Joe, or Monty, were you going to say something?
I was going to say, but don't let that dissuade you if you are a new player from exploring Drakenheim, because again, just make sure that you get some good help.
Well, yeah, and I also think
Resources.
new players coming in are going to experience the campaign in a way that prompts them to prepare for adventure, and so that's not a bad thing. Joe, what about you?
This isn't super in the light of Pluto. This isn't really filtered through Pluto, but be prepared to run away. That's something I learned as a new player, and there's so many times where you get into a battle and you feel overwhelmed, and it's not just because everybody rolled a 1. Okay, there can just be a lot of just tactical decisions or choices that get made, and I think it's okay to just sort of take a step back and revisit it. You don't have to treat it if you, especially because everyone gets very enamored with their characters and their choices, but even the smartest, bravest fighters and mages know when they're outmatched, and they'll find a way to fight another day. And that's one of my favorite, and not Pluto though. It's very.
I think the original Draken Force was pretty foolhardy. I'm not sure. I think
that's fair.
I think this is an absolutely delightful campaign for foolhardy players, because I think that it is a cool way for foolhardy players to see, oh, my actions have consequences.
No, they don't.
In a way that is that doesn't often. I think one of our goals here is so often in a D&D campaign, player death is the only thing at stake, and I hope that Drakenheim makes your players, especially if you do have foolhardy players, realize, oh, it's about more than just us. Our survival is a big deal, but there's a lot more at stake, especially as the campaign grows away. And I think that Joe's advice of be prepared to flee at a moment's notice is well taken.
There's this sense of I know when I first started playing Dungeons and Dragons, even years and years ago with other campaigns, you just feel like every battle you just have to sit in. And, when I first learned that you could just not fight, I was like, oh, you can just leave? You can just run away if you need to. It opened up more possibilities. Not every combat encounter also has to be solved through force.
Yeah, there are a lot of places in the campaign where obviously it's going to result in a combat encounter. Whether you run away is up to you, but also there's a lot of situations that don't have to result in a combat encounter, and there's a lot of options in the book for completely outdoing situations by talking and outwitting and being a sly sorcerer with a high charisma score.
Yeah, because the faction intrigue is filled with things. And well, this is not a traditional Unite the Factions campaign. Several of the factions have deep ideological differences, and their goals are in direct conflict with one another, although open war hasn't broken out at the outset of the campaign. So it is an important thing that if you do have players that are expecting, oh, this is going to be like a Unite the Factions campaign where I go to every single faction and increase my reputation with them and they do whatever I want. One of the things that the original Drakenforce ran into is that the factions in Drakenheim want loyalty. And they don't trust easily. And when they find out that you are working with other factions, they actually get defensive about that. They're like, what's going on here? Like, whose side are you really on? So if you do have players that are interested in intrigue, I think there's so many cool options. Like, we talked about all the different possibilities of how really cunning players could take over the Hooded Lanterns from the inside in service to the Queen of Thieves. So it's getting all 5 of the factions to work together in an honest way. I don't know if that's possible, but maybe your player characters work for the Followers of the Falling Fire and convince the Silver Order to convert to the Falling Fire. That destroys the Silver Order and what it was, but the characters that make up that faction are there. Maybe your player characters convince the Amethyst Academy that actually harvesting Delirium is a terrible idea, and the Amethyst Academy decides to join forces with things. There's all sorts of possibilities, but if you do have players that are interested in like that Unite the Factions campaign, they're going to have to change something fundamental about the factions in order to do that.
Joe and Jill, if you guys could play Drakenheim again, what faction would you want to ally with?
Queen of Thieves. 100%. Yeah, I think just the options, and I love the ruthlessness, and I know you sort of got a sense of some of what Monty and Kelly created in terms of like their ideologies and what the Queen of Thieves wants in the books. Going to go into more detail, but I loved the idea that they were this band of misfits, and you really could find a place. There's a lot of different opportunities to play a lot of different characters with the Queen of Thieves. So that would be my first pick, to try to ally with them early.
Yeah.
Jill, you sounded like you were agreeing.
I agree on one side, but I also, just thinking back to how we chose and what factions we went with, I would actually probably go the opposite and go Silver Order. Only because I think it would be such a different view on how you think about Drakenheim in terms of taking on monsters and what your beliefs are around it. Like, I think we went at it initially with an idea that we wanted to save the city, and what happens if you just think, this place is burn it to the ground,
beyond saving,
beyond saving, and you can't do it. So I think we've made a lot of different decisions in that sense, and it could have led to a whole completely different game.
And it's really cool because when we have a whole chapter called The Fate of Drakenheim, which is the last chapter of the book, where we talk about different possible outcomes that relate to different factions meeting their goals, achieving their objectives, which are multi-layered as well, which is really cool. So, you can have different things. One of the options that's in the book is for one of your player characters to play a long lost heir to the throne of Drakenheim. And so we leave that open. We leave it open to you to actually decide the true identity of the Queen of Thieves if you want to. We have the canon one is still there if you want to use it. But if you want to go so far as to rewrite there's several things in the book where we were like, we did it this way, but you can do it this way if you want to. So we really want to empower you by saying, this was the way we did it. This is a couple ideas. And if you want to change it here, here, or here, these are the levers that you can sort of pull to adjust the campaign to fit where you and where your players want to go with it.
I feel like I'm on the side of Queen of Thieves as well. Like I would definitely. I mean, we had so much fun with the Rooked side, the Untold Tales, but I also think that I'd be really fascinated to see what a group who joins the Falling Fire ends up doing.
Yeah,
I think that's also a wildly different look at Draken.
Oh yeah, it's really different. And speaking of the Queen of Thieves, someone wants to know: is the Queen of Thieves riddle in the book? You betcha it is. Yeah,
you can do better.
And it's
than
unsolvable, and it's unsolvable, and you'll never get it. So I don't even know why anyone wants to know.
No, nobody will ever guess the answer.
And you'll never get it.
Those of you who went online and said,
book.
"Oh, it's easy," you know what? You're all lying. You're all lying.
You're all just been waiting for the PDF to drop. Okay, you're looking for the book.
You don't even know the answer. No, I don't. That was.
We're smart. We're smart people.
I swear we're smart.
It's hard when you're in the moment.
We also are getting a lot of questions, actually, just in a more general way, about virtual tabletops and VTTs. I just want to give a brief answer. We'll have more details on this forthcoming, but this is a VTT agnostic campaign. So we will be providing you with tools as we go forward to set up Drakenheim on the VTT of your choice. But because many virtual tabletops have their own online marketplaces and their own rules and policies surrounding modules and products on those are things that have to be negotiated, and it doesn't look like we're going to be able to make those decisions during the Kickstarter itself. So it's something that we're taking very seriously, because we realize that because of the past 2 years, a lot more people are playing online. We want to make sure that you have the tools to do it on the virtual tabletop of your choice. But having, if you've played on virtual tabletops where you've gotten other modules, where you've gotten a complete package that is all bundled together with everything sort of done and set up for you, it doesn't look like that's going to be possible during the Kickstarter, but we will give you things so that you can easily rig it up on a VTT, such as images and maps and stuff like that. There'll be more details forthcoming on exactly how that's going to be implemented in a little while. It is just one of those tough things to iron out the exact details, because as I said, because of the virtual tabletops and their marketplace systems and their policies regarding that, it requires a little bit of business side decision making.
I love this question. What faction are you the most proud of? And my answer is going to be a non-answer. I love them all. I love them all so much. And it honestly, I could pick one, but then tomorrow I'll pick a different one. As we were working on them, I remember working on the Queen of Thieves stuff, being like, this is the coolest faction. And then I remember working on the Amethyst Academy stuff, being like, wow, they're so much cooler than I even remembered them. And like, each faction has different amazing elements about them. There's really a strong theme with each faction that highlights different elements of what a Drakenheim campaign might look like. So I don't have a favorite. It's really hard. I guess, this is the cliche answer for any creator, but like Monty and I poured our hearts and souls into every part of the book, which means that each faction holds a very special place in our heart, and it depends on my mood.
Actually, and I will say, I do have some slight biases for the Amethyst Academy, probably because they're one of the first factions that were created in full, like that emerged fully detailed. But I think that one of the things that was really important for me in working on them is that, and for DMs running them, it's really important whether as for me as the author, but for also for you as the dungeon master running it, you gotta be neutral with the factions. It's really challenging. You gotta find something that you glom onto with each of them, because it's really easy to even subtly influence the players with any one faction. I even felt that like the fact that I kind of like the Amethyst Academy is part of the reason why our players are so wrapped up with them, because I think that my enthusiasm for that kind of pulls us in that direction. So I think it's really worthwhile to make sure that when you present the factions, that you really do so in a neutral sort of way, so that the players can make that decision about which factions they want to work with, right? Because it is easy to look at the faction's goals and the faction's ideals and be like, I agree with this faction the most myself as a DM, but you got to make sure that when the player characters start to think that they're like, oh yeah, these guys have the right of it, that you kind of turn that around and say, but they also are kind of weird in this way.
Yeah, I think as a DM running the campaign, something that's important, as soon as your players think they know what faction they like the most, have one of the other factions present a compelling reason why they might be right. And you as a DM need to think of what that is. Like when you read the sections, you might not necessarily agree with the Queen of Thieves, but we hope that you can at least look at it and say, I get where she's coming from. And so if your players are against her, when they like in our campaign, the Queen of Thieves had a lot of moments where we were like, is she right? Mm-hmm. But all of the factions presented that at any time. Like there were times where the Silver Order, it was like, are we against them or are we with them? The Falling Fire, even, we were like, oh, those nut jobs. And then we were like, but they're onto something. They seem to be able to jam delirium in their chest and survive. So why? So having all those elements, like the Hooded Lanterns represent the reclaiming Drakenheim for the good of the people. And what do you believe in? And even if you believe in something and you think you know what's up, the other faction should pose real compelling arguments to make you second guess yourself. Yeah,
because you got a lot of adversaries to overcome in Drakenheim, and you're gonna need their help. I think we should show off some of the minis. What do you all think?
Yes. We just passed 320,000. We started this before we hit 300,000. So, wow. Yeah.
Thank you
all so much. Wow. I'm blown away. Check out these minis. Yeah. So for the campaign, we are doing miniature for the Rat Prince, the Crimson Countess, who you might have known for those of you that watched the original show. This is the Red Dot, as Veo called.
Veo's nemesis.
The Harpy Matriarch of the Clock Tower, Lenore, the Lord of the Feast, and the Executioner. What did you, Joe and Jill, you two got to see these minis as they were being worked on and sculpted. What was your reaction to them?
Look how imposing the Executioner is. Yeah. Look at how massive. And then I love the dark theme too, with Lenore, the Rat Prince. I feel like Pluto had these goggles on, like Sebastian, where he saw the reference through a different I don't know. And you see him now, you're like, I would run the other way.
Yeah. Why would we ever think that putting a pink dress on the Rat Prince was a conceivably good idea?
Why would we ever try to befriend that thing?
The other thing is just I know, especially thinking of the Executioner. I had an idea in my head, but then when I saw this, I was just like, did we run fast enough away from this thing? Because that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
The one that gets me, and I do think that the Executioner knocked it out of the park so hard that it's hard to focus on this one. But for me, the Lord of the Feast really... We had to change a few things. So in the show, he was based on a different creature that was not in the OGL, and he had a 3 flail thing. So we switched him to an actual hunter. He has a massive bow that is bigger than a person, and he has various types of arrows that he can pull out and fire at you. As he has trap arrows and chained arrows.
So he has one that is delirium tipped. He has one that is a harpoon, and is the other one?
Yeah, delirium tip, the harpoon, and wasn't there one that just wraps, it's a chain that wraps you up?
Oh yeah, it's a chain. It's like a bolus. It has a snare to it. Yeah. So and just so that you know, The Lord of the Feast is on the random encounter table.
Yeah, that was actually, so is the Crimson Countess and I think the Rat Prince. You can run into them if you roll, I think it's if you roll like 2 or 3 ones on the D6s.
I think one of the random encounters when you're exploring the inner city is, so rather than having a navigation system, we just using random encounters. And one of the random encounters that you can roll is you got lost and ran into Slaughterstone Square. And now deal with it.
Oh no!
Yeah, that's if you get.
Remember how Joe was saying, "Run away."
Yeah, it's always an option.
Yeah,
You always have a chance of getting lost in Drakenheim, and you always find yourself either at one of the gates or at Slaughterstone Square. But the fact that the Lord of the Feast can just pop up wherever, and we also in the show he was a challenge rating. What challenge rating was he in the show?
He was based on a monster that is not OGL, that it was challenge rating 16, and he is now a challenge rating 20 legendary monster.
Yeah, he's gotten beefed up, and I gotta say that I'm just.
And he can throw the axe.
Oh yeah. Oh, the Executioner can?
Yeah, the Executioner can throw the axe. The Lord of the Feast is challenge rating 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of them have been beefed up, and they're all scary, and they're way more terrifying. And good luck.
Yeah, and people asking, is Monty's D6 system in the book? It is, because we actually tell you to use a D20 in the book, but we tell you that you can adjust it down to a D6. The main reason we use a D6 on the show is because I have 3 player characters, and using a D6 creates more active conflict. But when you play with your players and you're not on a stream and you're exploring the city, a D20 is a little bit more measured, considering that you have to check every hour that you walk through the city. So I think you have to check for random, like if you're going from the outskirts of the city to the middle of the city, I think you have to check like 4 or 5 times for random encounters. So conceivably, if you wanted to simplify it, you could just have 1 check each time, but it is like the random encounters are really important, and they're also all fleshed out. So all the random encounters have cool stuff attached to them. You can find things randomly. There's treasure attached to them. There's a couple random encounters that can actually advance the story or create new interactions. So these are not just you run into 1d6 gnolls, they fight you. It's like, no, and this is actually on the DM screen. The DM screen shows you when you roll a random encounter, here are a bunch of cool locations and weird things that are happening in the ruins, and here's a bunch of cool things that your party can find that might feed into other information in the campaign. So the random encounters are actually a big part of a Drakenheim experience.
Yeah, and Monty, did we end up, I don't remember if we cut this or not, but there was a graph that showed the likelihood of rolling a 1 or a 6 for each die. Did we end up leaving that in, or did that
it's not in the book, but we have it all over the place on all of our other things. So if you've watched our other videos on how to run random encounters, which if you want to know about Monty's D6 system, we actually have a video on YouTube on how we run random encounters that does have a Google Doc that has a link to that table with the probabilities, so you can adjust accordingly depending on how you fit. So we do say in the book that if you have a group that is larger than 5 or smaller than, or that is 3 or 5, you should adjust accordingly.
Yeah, like if you have a large group, then rolling a d20 for like 6 or 7 players, you still have a good chance of hitting a 1. But for 3 players, you might want to use a d8 or a d6.
Yeah. I also, going back though, I also really love the miniature from Lenore. I love how this one turned out. She's such a tragic character. Yeah. And just seeing that all come together. The artwork as well is going to be really, really cool. This will just be a fun, very subtle one.
We still are. I see a lot of questions still about like classes and races in Drakenheim. Are there any classes that would be more difficult to play because of some features in Drakenheim? The answer is no. Actually, one thing that we got rid of is Veo in our show had a resistance to Delirium because she was a catfolk. But we actually wanted to, again, just make it very open-ended. So the contamination affects everything. It affects constructs, it affects undead. So you can't be bringing your Warforged in here being like, I'm immune to the haze. Like, no, it's a magical entity. And actually, we broadcast that in the show. We walked by houses that had been turned into flesh or glass. So like, it messes with inanimate objects. So if you're made out of metal, you're not immune to mutations. You can still turn into messed up stuff. So any race, any class can fit into Drakenheim. The rules for contamination, delirium, and all of the additional stuff that we've thrown in are basically concrete and blanketed over everybody. So play the character you want to play in Drakenheim. That's something that we really want you to do. We don't want you to be like, oh, I don't know, elves have a hard time in Drakenheim, so I don't know if I want to play one. No, play whatever you want.
Yeah. There's no limit to the creativity there. In terms of what kind of characters you can imagine. The only important thing is just remember, and we say this in the beginning, people who aren't willing to risk their lives for something don't come to Drakenheim. So when you think about your character, think about why they come. Why are they here? And that's why we have the personal quests and the other tools to really help you with that, because answering that question is a really important one. This is a campaign where a session 0 is really important. We actually talk about how to do a session 0 for Drakenheim in the book, about the things that you should talk about, the content warnings that you should go over, make sure that your players are on board with the themes of dark fantasy and cosmic horror. So that if there is one thing that is super essential to setting up a Drakenheim campaign well, it's a good session 0. And because of that, I feel that whether you are a first-time dungeon master or a first-time player, you can play this campaign. I think that as a DM, if you've run one of the starter set adventures, it puts you and are a little bit more, have at least that under your belt, or played D&D before, you'll be fine. So I think as a new DM or a new player, you can actually do pretty well with this, because we've got this book really lays it out for you, and also you've got a whole campaign that you can watch to see how we did it, and you also have all of our amazing videos on YouTube. So if you're a first-time dungeon master and you're planning on running in Drakenheim, you're actually in really good hands, because there's so many more resources just beyond the book to help you run this campaign.
There's a great question. We've been getting a lot of this. Can you explain what the tactical map pack is? And do we have any information on the actual delivery date of the book? I think that all that we can say now, Kickstarters are a little bit nebulous with that. I think the goal that is advertised on the actual Kickstarter page is April of next year. That is subject to change depending on how everything goes, but Ghostfire is usually pretty good at hitting their goals.
Ghostfire Games has absolutely nailed it for their previous Kickstarters for Grim Hollow, and has really shown consistency in that respect. The biggest thing that can cause uncertainty with Kickstarters like this is manufacturing and shipping. The book design is done. We have written this entire book, and in fact we've actually gone through the first phase of editing already, so like we're already in the phase where artwork and layout is happening. So at that point, it really is about finishing any play testing and doing any further development to just make sure that it's fully polished, and then printing the book and making all the things and shipping them. So because all the design is done, it really leaves us in that most uncertain phase where I was talking to a very good friend of mine from another company. I won't specify, but they were talking about how their factory had to go into lockdown. And so that delayed their manufacturing because they had to shut the factory down for 3 weeks. These things can still happen in this day and age, and so those can throw things off. But I have a lot of faith in Ghostfire. Part of the reason why we chose Ghostfire Games to work with is because they have so much expertise in doing this stuff.
Regarding the tactical map packs, obviously there's going to be a lot of maps in the book for all the adventure sites, but and we don't have a full list of what's exactly going in the tactical map pack, because it also depends on how many stretch goals we unlock, because that could add more. But I can tell you that the tactical map pack will include double-sided maps that you can just slam on the table and start playing, and they will include things like the city streets or the walls of Drakenheim. So that those are just two that we know we're going to have.
One is streets and sewers, with the streets and the sewers corresponding to each other. So when you flip the map over, you'll get the right thing on the other side as well. One is a gatehouse. You can see it in the preview image. And then we're still racking our brains on exactly the other ones, but I think we're going to have Slaughterstone Square as one. Yeah. I think we're going to have the Clock Tower as one. I think we might do the Crater's Edge as one, and I think we said we might do the Throne Room as well, and another. We might actually. We'll chat about this. We might have to rack our brains anymore. So if there and make the final decision. I think we made a short list of like 20, and the map pack is going to let us do 10. So we still have to like narrow it exactly down to which ones. Each of them are going to be 30 by 30. I believe. So they're going to be the reason why they're tactical is you'll be able to put miniatures right on top of them. So, I think the Rat's Nest is one. I think the way we did it is that we want there to be one tactical map for each of the 5 minis. I think that's the way we were thinking it.
Yeah,
right?
This is still subject to possible change, so don't hold us to this. We're still in the development side of this part. There's a great question in here that I actually, I think the answer is just, I guess so, but can a monk catch the executioner's axe? Because the monk has that ability that they can catch a projectile and using key points whip it back.
Don't you have to be able to... It's D10 plus your monk level, right?
Yeah, so you're going to have to be a very high level monk.
Yeah, that axe does 30 damage. I don't think you're gonna catch it. I'm sorry.
I mean, you can try.
You'll catch it.
Yeah, in the face. But yeah, that is possible. Yeah. Is it likely?
Yeah. So I guess in theory it's possible, but yeah.
A lot of great questions in here. People want to know. Hold on, I just saw a bunch, and now I'm trying to find them again. Ba-da-ba. Going through the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Jill, how are you?
Someone asked about the sewers. The sewers of Drakenheim are kind of a maze-like nightmare, so we haven't mapped them out. We've mapped out sections of the sewers that you can use, but they are meant to be abstract. So the sewers roughly correspond to the streets above. And the way that we do it, one of the things that this was the thing that we discovered in developing it, is that taking the sewers is a terrible idea. Like, it is not a good idea at all. The streets are, in most areas of Drakenheim, the streets are safer than the sewers. So
how many times did we take the sewers?
Now we know.
Yeah. So the reason why you might want to take the sewers is because you're looking for a specific secret entrance into another location. And so that's where the sewers come into play. If your player characters do want to travel via the sewers, there's a chance that if they've learned the ways around the sewers, if they have a guide or a map, they might be able to get around faster. But if you don't have that, you might be in for a bad time.
We had a request a little earlier for a closer look at the dice. Do we have an image of the dice that we can pop up?
We do have a closer image of the dice. So I'll just pull this up for us. So here is the Delirium dice. So there's 2 sets. One is a set of plastic dice. So they're the standard. They're like awesome, high quality plastic dice that are your standard, good to roll any type, and they come in a nice pouch. And then the other set is a heavy metal set of dice, both of them in the speckled Delirium, and those ones come in a wooden dice box. But Kelly, do you want to tell us about what is there with the dice?
All right, this was one of my favorite little projects that I got to do. Each set of dice comes with a pamphlet written by the Amethyst Academy detailing the dangers of handling delirium. We wrote it. It's very, very tongue-in-cheek humor. I'm trying to remember. There's like one that's like keep away from electricity, water, or children. There's like, don't eat delirium, do not feed delirium to your pets. It's just like a really fun list. And I think on the back there's a list of possible side effects, which I got to write that up, and the side effects I just had such a blast with. It's just like a long list. It's like could cause headaches, dizziness, sore throat, dismemberment, and like goes on and on. Mild death was one that I wrote.
Yep.
This is more for me and any of our Canadian friends out there, but in Canadian dollars, we just passed 400,000.
Whoa!
Not in American dollars, but hey.
Hey, we'll see where we go. So yeah, so the Delirium dice are awesome. I'm probably gonna get some extra sets for myself. Because, but it was so fun for Kelly to write that. Gloves and goggles not included. Right. So use at your own risk. The other thing that we have that is really cool coming up with this as well are the cards too. Yeah. I'm really excited about these. So we have 2 decks of cards planned. The first is the Eldritch Contamination deck, and the second is the Magic of Drakenheim deck. So obviously, Joe and Jill, you guys have started playing with Contamination in our games. You guys have been the guinea pigs of the system. So one of the things that we found with Contamination is that you definitely want to have a reminder for the players that they're contaminated. So the way the Contamination deck works is there's 2 sets of cards in it. You get several copies of the 6 cards that have the contamination symptoms from level 1 to 6. So each time your players get a contamination level, you just give them a contamination level card, and it tells them what effects are going to apply to them, and they can see they're building a little stack of cards up in front of them. And if they get a mutation, you can just shuffle the mutations deck and deal them a mutation, and that's what they end up with and amazing. Then all the rules for the mutation are on the card. And because these contamination levels can be purged away and the mutations can be removed, you just can either paperclip it onto the character sheet or pull it right off, and they're all there for you. What I will say is that if you have a group of 5 or 6 players, if you have a large group, you might want 2 of these decks, just to make sure that you got extra cards for all the contamination your players will suffer.
Joe and
he
Jill.
Laughs, he laughs.
Joe and Jill, what has your experience with Contamination been like? How's that gone for you?
Actually, I know we're just starting to dive into it, which is what I'm really enjoying and I know we didn't touch a lot on it in the beginning, but I like to just think that we were just super careful with our, with our, ourselves and how we handle delirium. But, okay, actually I want to throw it back to you. What was one of your favorite, contaminations to write? What's your
okay oh boy, I'm trying to okay, so to be fair, I might throw out some that didn't make the final cut because I'm trying to remember. Monty and I originally had about 100, and then we were like, well, that takes up way too many pages, so we cut it down to our favorite ones. But do we still have the one where you grow a cyst that like pops out?
I think we do. There's one where you grow a cyst on your body, and 1d6 hours later it pops, and a mutated creature emerges that hates everybody, but it counts as your familiar.
Free casting. You get a free casting of Find Familiar, but it grows horribly on your body and explodes out, and it's a disgruntled flesh monster.
Yeah.
And I just like, when we were coming up with that, Monty was like, what if there was a mutation that was a free casting of Find Familiar? And I was like, that's amazing. What does that look like? And we just going through the description of it, it was like, oh my God, like, of course. I think there's also one where there's like a stomach grows on your, or a mouth grows on your stomach. And not only can you like feed it and stuff, but it also belittles you.
It demands to be fed. So for those wondering, Eldritch Contamination is a brand new condition that works exactly like exhaustion, except the different levels of contamination have different effects. In fact, Contamination level 1 actually has no effect. There's no negative effect. It's not till Contamination level 2 that it reduces the number of hit points you regain from spending hit dice. At level 3, it reduces the number of hit points you gain from a long rest. And it's not till level 4 that your damage is halved. And at level 5, you're incapacitated. And in level 6, you transform into a monster. Contamination is a new condition, so it does not interact with things that remove curses or diseases. So we deliberately designed it so that you have to use the new spells and abilities and magic items that we created to remove it. So if you are a paladin and you are immune to disease, this isn't a disease. If you are able to remove curses, this is not a curse. You can't remove it with this spell magic. It's not a poison. You can't use lesser restoration against it. The heal spell does work against it. So that's a specific heal will remove all contamination from you. And there is a new spell that is a 3rd level spell called Purge Contamination that does remove all your contamination levels, but it trades your contamination levels for exhaustion in the process. So you do have to play carefully. And then there are magic items like Aqua Expurgo and other new spells that will help you protect against contamination, some of which you will have to learn and unlock over the course of the campaign.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because the contamination haze and all of that is meant to be one of the issues of the campaign that the player characters need to deal with. Actually, you gave a really good example, I think, in one of our Q&As where you compared it to if spells could just get rid of the death curse in Tomb of Annihilation. Or like you just made a character who was like, I'm not affected by the death curse, then you don't really have a campaign because it's all about solving the problem of the death curse. So part of the campaign, one of the secrets of the campaign is discovering the new magic and new ways that you can use that magic in order to circumvent the issues caused by contamination. So that's baked into the structure of the campaign.
Now, there are really potent defenses that you can learn against contamination at higher levels. We have a new spell called Neutralizing Field that is really powerful at protecting you from contamination. It's a 5th level spell that creates an aura that prevents the creatures within that area from gaining contamination at all. So it's if you're really worried about it, you might want to learn this new spell. And you can also drink Aqua Expurgo, which allows you to automatically succeed saving throws against it. But there are no monsters, undead, dragons, constructs. The only creature type that is technically immune to it is aberrations. And also the monsters that are already in Drakenheim have a trait added to them that basically all monsters in Drakenheim have a trait called Fully Contaminated, which basically means that they have already been created by or conjured by the haze and are already considered the product of a mutation in that respect.
Just for a fun random tidbit of information, Neutralizing Field, when we were designing that spell, in my head, I was 100% thinking of, for any Mass Effect fans out there, at the end of Mass Effect 2, where you have to pick one of your party members to like have that shield and you have to stay within the confines of that shield while all of these things outside are attacking. I was 100% picturing that when we were designing Neutralizing Field. I love that visual of like the spellcaster has to concentrate on this like just dome around the party and they have to stay there concentrating on it and like figuring that out.
And there is a high level spell called Contamination Immunity that will render you totally immune to contamination for a specified period of time. So but your players will have to invent that spell because it doesn't exist at the start of the campaign. They have to earn it.
I've just a fun question for Joe and Jill because I want to get you guys talking. I feel like Monty and I are hogging spotlights here. So Joe and Jill, here's a question: if you could play a class in a Drakenheim setting other than the two that you have already played, what class would you play, and why does it interest you for a Drakenheim setting?
I mean, I already know what I want my next class to be.
But if you don't want to spoil that, you can think, I don't know, do what you want, but don't feel like you have to spoil your future ideas.
And who knows? We'll get there. What will happen? But I want to be a wild magic barbarian. I feel like it's such a good mix between again, magic in this magical environment and being a meat shield. And I kind of love being a meat shield. It's fun.
Nice. I think that you could easily, and this comes for the audience. This comes with, if you can think of ways to inspire the classes you pick through a lens of Drakenheim, we encourage you to do that. That's how we designed our characters. And I think Jill playing a wild magic barbarian, you could have had an encounter with Delirium in the past, and that's what caused the wild magicness of your barbarian. You were a barbarian who fought off Delirium infested monsters, and now you have wild magic. I love the way that you could do that. Joe, what about you?
One, I think going back to my idea of playing in a game that I try to align with the Queen of Thieves, I would love to play a monk. I've seen you play a monk, Kelly, and Jill, and I think it would be a great next step. I always like to try different characters that I haven't, or at least classes that I haven't played before, and that's what I loved about the Shadows. I loved about the Untold Tales, and now so for the next thing, I think my next character, I'd want to be a monk. There's a part of me that wants to play a paladin, but at the same time, I feel like then I don't get to be a thief.
Actually, a character concept I had first way through season 1 that is kind of just sitting on the sidelines. It's not necessarily even my favorite concept for my next Drakenheim character, but one that I thought was really interesting is I always thought that it would be cool to make a dwarven forge domain cleric who specifically has come to Drakenheim because him and his clan think that not the delirium, but the meteoric iron is a sign from their god.
Oh.
So it's meant for the forge. It's meant to be made into incredible items. And he has come to Drakenheim to find meteoric iron and make amazing, incredible items with it.
Cool.
And some folks ask, speaking of character classes, what characters can cast these new spells? Purge Contamination, Neutralizing Field, and Contamination Immunity. If you can cast spells of those levels, you can learn those spells. So Purge Contamination is a 3rd level spell, so basically every class that casts spells can cast it. Neutralizing Field is a 5th level spell, so almost everybody can cast it. And Contamination Immunity is either a 7th or 8th level spell, so that's only for the really high level folks, though. And so then there's a couple other new spells that are restricted by class, like the Sacrament of the Falling Fire is a 9th level spell that Lucretia Matthias uses to do the ritual of the falling fire, and you can learn that one if you get on her good side.
I just saw Dwarven Forge has joined the party, and they really like my idea of the Dwarven Forge domain cleric. And Thanks for the kind words, Dwarven Forge.
We will actually be on the Anvil with them on Wednesday, chatting on their show, talking about terrain and stuff, and how Dwarven Forge, actually, you want to talk about another heart and soul of Drakenheim. Kelly, you remember when we backed their city builder Kickstarter years ago, and we're like, we got to use this terrain?
That's how this whole thing started.
Yeah,
we saw their city builder terrain, and we were like, all right, so a campaign in an entire city, like just a city campaign. We'll just get as much of it as we can, and we'll do a whole campaign in a city. And what's great is all of their Kickstarters that have happened since then, it just is like, oh, so we can expand on the world of Drakenheim with each Kickstarter that they launch because, oh, they're releasing like wildlands. Like, yeah, let's do some wilderness exploration. So yeah, it's great. We've been supporters of Dwarven Forge for, I mean, I guess since we started playing. Well, since I started playing D&D,
actually, when I got into D&D as a teenager, I got into D&D the same summer that I worked my first part-time job, and I remember I bought the core rule books, the starter set, and I ordered a Dwarven Forge starter set, and I had, for my very first game of D&D that I ran, I had a Dwarven Forge set. So for Dwarven Forge for me is synonymous with D&D. And I still have those. There was a time where I almost sold my old Dwarven Forge resin sets, but I realized that to do that would be like selling my first player's handbook, and that's like part of my legacy, right? Yeah.
No, I think I remember you being like, should I sell them? I'm like, I'm going to buy them off of you then. Like, whatever. So yeah, Dwarven Forge we've been a supporter of theirs forever, and they've been a supporter of ours forever, and we're just really happy to have friends there. It was such a treat to have them on. Actually, our last Untold Tales, we had so many cool people show up, which was awesome. Such a treat.
I was gonna say, were they the first ones other than us to play in Drakenheim?
Yeah, Nate and Nina. So Nina is one of their sculptors and Dwarven Forge expert extraordinaire, and Nate is their creative director, and they came and played on with us for one of the Untold Tales, and that was super cool. Their characters were a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was a really wacky adventure. I felt like that brought a totally different vibe. It's so interesting playing with these different groups because it brings a whole new vibe to Drakenheim. Like, Drakenheim can be so many things, and even like when Jill, I and Alicia got to do this like really cool sort of, I don't know, like a very carefree, stumbled into problems sort of vibe. I felt like that was the vibe of our trio, was like, oh, we're just on the road together, and now we've ended up in Drakenheim. And then meanwhile, I had a blast with Joe and Matt Ruff playing the grave robbers. And we were just a bunch of idiots. And then like I got to DM with Mitch. Yeah. And Mitch is always a treat. The thing I love about Mitch is I remember him sending me his character, and he's like, I'm going to be a half-orc champion fighter. And I was like, wow, I've seen a lot of half-orc champion fighters in my day. And then when he showed up, I was like, I have never seen a half-orc champion fighter be this engaging and hilarious. And that's just what Mitch does. He'll take any old concept and just ride with it and make it so fun. So it was so good to see these. And I also hope that those inspire the people out there, again, to play it different. Make your own vibe, make your own sort of theme for your party, and just delve into the ruins and bring it to life.
Yeah, and for those of you that really want to delve in, we do also have the contaminated spells coming as well. So with the contaminated spells, what we've done is we've taken some OGL spells and we have infused them with contamination. And so you can learn these spells, but casting a contaminated spell gives you, as the caster, a contamination level. They have really powerful effects. They are many of them are mutated versions of OGL spells. So Conjure the Deep Haze is basically a contaminated cloud kill. Ooh. So hopefully, again, we have a couple of those planned for stretch goals too. So hopefully we can make all of them that we wanted to make, because Kelly and I have some really crazy ideas for contaminated spells that are not based on OGL ones, but that are the product of our twisted imaginations. And we'd really like to get these in the book.
One of my favorites that we actually have artwork for that may have been seen floating around is we made a spell called Ride the Riffs.
Yes, ride the riffs,
which is like lightning bolt mixed with thunderstep. It's you basically cast like a contaminated lightning bolt, and then you teleport to the end of where you cast it. And actually, I guess Marius really liked that one. And he did artwork for it, which you can see floating around right now on various locations.
Yeah, the artwork really evolved it, because what happens in the artwork is it looks like the caster is like teleporting out of the back of the target. So we might adjust it to be like a spell where like you hit someone with the bolt of lightning, and whoever you hit with it, like you teleport behind them.
Yeah.
So cool.
We're at 330,000.
And someone asked the interesting question of Aiden Templeton asked, what if you cast the contaminated spell in neutralizing field? Neutralizing field actually automatically stops contaminated spells in its area. So if you are in the radius of neutralizing field, you cannot cast contaminated spells.
Yeah, so the contaminated spells are meant to be that risk reward sort of thing that if you're trying to avoid getting contaminated, then the spells aren't really going to work that well.
Yeah.
But if you want to play with contamination and you're like, well, the first level of contamination doesn't have any effect. And then, we're hoping that we give you that small taste so that you're like, maybe I can go to contamination level 2 by casting another really powerful spell. And next thing you know, you turn into a giant monster and you're dead.
Yep. So be careful with that, because there are some, in general, there's very few effects that can cause you to gain more than one contamination level at a time, but there are some out there that can. So speaking
of things that cause contamination levels and are terrifying, Monty, what's your favorite monster that we have in the book?
I mean, is it not the Delirium Dregs?
I mean, I have a personal favorite, but the Delirium Dregs are such a treat. It's like a 12-in-1 monster. So you have a generic stat block, but then you have 12 variations that you can staple onto it that offer an additional ability or two. So we have tentacled dregs or spined dregs or aquatic dregs, the fish folk. There's a bunch of them. My personal favorite was I came to Monty to pitch the idea of sort of a banshee / ghost that was caused by a mage who died in the delirium, or like a witch who died in the delirium. We called it the Warp Witch, and it can possess you. And then as it possesses you, it just layers on contamination levels while you're possessed. So it will float into your body, inhabit you, make you fight your allies while trying to turn you into a mutated monster. And I love it. I love it. It's so scary. It was not in the original campaign, but I was just like, we need to have a banshee ghost sort of vibe that is contaminated.
Yeah. Another one, these are ones that we have planned for stretch goals, so hopefully we can get them in. We have contaminated elementals. Yeah. So all of the classic elementals, we have contaminated versions of them. So I'm not sure when these come up in the stretch goals, but it is the Walking Delirium Cluster, the Living Haze, is it called the Entropic Flame? It's like the Living Comet.
It was either the Entropic Flame or the Eldritch Flame or like something of that sort.
And the Animated Delirium Sludge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the I hope we get to do the contaminated elementals. Those will be in as one of the stretch goals, I think, because they ended up. I originally thought we were going to be able to do the contaminated elementals as just here's 2 ways to modify a water elemental, but it ended up being they needed a lot more like work to make them balanced. So
Joe and Jill, other than the 5 monsters that we have minis for, what is a monster that you are excited to see revamped in the book?
Eldritch, the Eldritch flowers, the Eldritch people.
Oh yes.
Yes.
So-
the hypnotic eldritch blossoms.
I come
So-
to you.
You know what was great is we didn't even realize this at the time, because when we were playing that early in the campaign, we hadn't really come up with the contamination yet. But you remember that all of you have watched it. You obviously, one of our great scenes is Pluto Jackson failing 1,000,000 wisdom saving throws in a row and continually abandoning everything we were doing to just dive into this pool to go after the Eldritch Lily. We've
It's
put
really
the Eldritch,
beautiful.
yeah, the Eldritch Lilies now, though, combined with contaminated water, is it's a death trap.
Oh man.
Yeah, so there's parts like I think one of the Queen's Park Garden there's random encounters in Queen's Park Garden, and I'm pretty sure one of them is just a lily in a pond. And if you go near it, you have to make a wisdom saving throw, and then you might walk into the contaminated pond.
No, there is several hypnotic eldritch blossoms in a pond, and they hypnotize you, but then there is a shambling mound living in the water that comes out.
Right. So yeah, lots of fun to be had with those. Jill, what was one of your favorite monsters?
Oh my gosh, trying to think. Like, I had a fun time with all of them. I love the gnolls, honestly. Like the amount of gnolls and fighting at the gates and stuff like that was really fun for me.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like the flowers of ones that they don't have minis of. Even
You know,
the harpies. Like I know we have a mini of the harpy, but the harpies.
The harpies are more plentiful and more apparent in the campaign. And also the gnolls, we have actually created our own custom creature called the, I can barely pronounce it. It's a Garmir?
The Garmer. Just to distinguish, because in Drakenheim the gnolls are considered monstrosities, so they're like the ratlings in the respect that they're the product of contamination. They're not like they're monsters that were created by the haze, rather than this is to distinguish them from the gnolls, which are humanoid people that are in some cases playable. So we wanted to make sure that they had that same sort of rattling distinction.
Okay, but let's be real, Monty. The real reason why we made our own bespoke Garmer is because everybody kept giving us flack that we kept referring to the gnolls as dog-like, and everybody was like, actually, hyenas are more cat-like, and so the Garmir are wolf-like. They're wolven type creatures.
Big Linda's in the book, for those of you wondering.
Big Linda.
Big Linda.
Big Linda's in there. Somebody brought up the Sybarex, which is now our own custom version, which is called the Amalgamation, which is way scarier.
Which is a challenge rating. So our new, for those of you that venture into Castle Draken, you may face the terrifying Amalgamation, a monstrosity that is challenge rating 26.
Yeah, and also in the basement of the castle, for those of you who remember our epic battle with the Beholder, Beholders are not OGL, so we got to create our own monster that is way more horrifying than a Beholder. I think it's called the Gravedigger, and it's just a bunch of arms. Just a whole bunch of arms.
It's just a whole bunch of arms holding lanterns.
Holding lanterns, then it just floats around down there. It's pretty creepy. They're really cool ones. Who else do we have to do as a really high level one? Oh, not a monster, but I love the way we designed the top of the Academy Tower.
It's
Yes.
really cool that like actually writing that out in a way that wasn't just Monty pulling it out of his butt. It's really cool what can happen to solve that. I also think one of the really fun like little rules that we have is we have all the rules for going on a delirium hunt. So if your players just want to go into Drakenheim and be like, we just want to look for delirium, we have actually rules for just how to just search the ruins and find delirium. And so if your players just want to get rich, that's all they need to do.
We are in our last 10 minutes of the stream tonight. We are currently sitting at, I'll do American dollars here, 334,000. Oh, just went up. $334,674. Of our $20,000 goal. So again, Monty and I were nervous, which seems weird now. Looking back at yesterday, where Monty and I were like, "I hope we hit our goal. That would be really cool." And now to see where we're at, it's just so incredibly rewarding to feel the love from this community, and I'm just so excited for everything that's going to happen, and I'm so excited for all of you to partake in Drakenheim adventures.
This has been a real privilege to do this, and we're actually coming up on 3,000 backers, 2,970 backers as well so far.
Oh, that's
so
wild.
that is two, and you know, all the people that are going to play in this world of Drakenheim. We're so excited to see all of your heroes descend into the ruins and find out who's going to put their names on the walls of Eckerman Mill.
Yeah. Joe and Jill.
I wonder if we could do that. Could we? I wonder if in the book we can have a backer thank you section, and I wonder if we can make it look like it is the etchings on Eckerman Mill.
That would be so cool.
Well, don't get everybody's hopes up before we discuss that with the whole team. But
yeah, that would be really cool though, if we could do something like that. I wonder if we could.
That seems very reasonable.
3,000 names on the walls of Eckerman Mill is a pretty big, pretty big list.
3,000 in the first day. We might be looking at more than that, Monty.
Yeah, we have to make some. Leave some space. Leave some
go.
space, everyone. Don't use your full name. Do your initials.
Something that we are thinking of doing, though, for those of you who don't know, we do have a Patreon exclusive Discord, and once the book is in people's hands and released, we're going to start a channel in the Discord called the Walls of Eckerman Mill, or something along those lines. And that's going to be a place for people to post their Drakenheim stories.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to read what other people are experiencing in the world of Drakenheim. So that's going to be really cool. Also, if you ever join us on Discord, you can hang out with us more often. So join our Patreon, join our Discord, and we will see you on there. Joe and Jill, I'm wondering, with 5 minutes left, any final thoughts on Drakenheim, the world, the campaign, the Kickstarter, or just playing in it? Are you excited for what's coming? I know we're in shadows of Drakenheim right now, but things are picking up there, and we hope that a lot of you are following along with that as well. But Joe, Jill, I'm just going to open it up. How are you guys feeling? What do you think? Drakenheim stuff. What's up?
Well, I think, I'm so excited for you guys and everything that you're doing. I'm really excited for Shadows. And I would kind of echo what Kelly said. Join the Discord. It's a fantastic community. There was even someone posting earlier about a lot of those questions are going to get answered. And when you have ideas of how you want to approach the book in the next year, and how there's some really great areas to develop your DM skills, your character skills, to ask questions about how to approach certain things at your table. And the Discord is just a great place to sort of let those ideas foster. So check out the Discord if you can. But yeah, stay tuned for the Kickstarter. I feel like there's so much more to come. This is just day one, baby.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, indeed. We are so excited. And of course, we will be back tomorrow night on Twitch with Shadows of Drakenheim. So we'll be all back here again, rolling some more dice, continuing the story of Drakenheim. So be sure to check us out there. And the great content on YouTube doesn't stop either. Join us again on Thursday. Kelly and I are going to be posting our Blade Singer build guide for there. So we're gonna all sorts of great stuff still coming. We'll be back there with Bruce.
Yeah, and also Jill, I wanted to get you in too. Talk to us.
Yeah, my final thoughts are like, welcome to the world of Drakenheim. I can't wait to hear all of your ideas, all of your stories, all of your pieces of joining this amazing, terrifying, fantastical place that you're now a part of. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank both of you for being here tonight to hang out and just party with us and celebrate the achievement, and including Bruce. Thank you, Bruce, for being here.
And thank you, and thank you to the Ghostfire team and to Kyle and to our partners. Anyone else, Kelly?
To all of you out there who stopped by to watch this, for everybody who has backed the Kickstarter, who plans to back the Kickstarter, for everybody who watches our show. Honestly, like, all of this is unreal to us. When we started the entire Dungeon Dudes project, I remember we made 4 videos that we put up on YouTube, and Monty and I said, yeah, we can keep doing this for a bit. We'll see if we can get like 100 subscribers. That would be neat. I don't think either of us expected that we would turn this into such a big part of our lives, or that we would be publishing a campaign module 4 years later. So just thank you all for your continued support and just helping us bring the worlds that we have created to life in meaningful ways, and in a way that will allow all of you to explore it as well. Yeah. It's been phenomenal, and I could say thank you a million times and it wouldn't be enough. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all.
And mine. And with that, thank you, and we are so excited to have you in the dungeons of Drakenheim.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.